Real estate, a live streamed weekly conversation about what's actually happening in the industry right now. Good morning. I'm Eric Zollinger, Chief Customer Officer here at RLTYco. Thank you for coming, and I'm very glad you're here. This is RLTYco's new roundtable. No prepared talking points, no predetermined conclusions, just informed voices having an honest conversation. Think of us as your real estate Sunday morning roundtable. We'll cover the headlines, the stories flying under the radar, and the things that matter most to agents, brokers, and the people we represent. So I may push back, I may play devil's advocate. It's all in the hopes and dreams of getting to that final angle of the story. So with that, let me introduce our guest panel today. It is Wednesday, June 17th. We welcome Jonathan Miller of HousingNotes.com and also Street Matrix, Stephen Larkin, Chief Communication Officer at Douglas Elliman, and we have AJ LaTrace, Senior Reporter at Inman News. Welcome, gentlemen. Thank you so much for being our guest today. And I'm going to kick it off with a story that is very tried and true to all of us New Yorkers right now, and that is what a moment for our city on Saturday night. The Knicks are NBA champions, their first title since 1973, 53 years ago, after beating the Spurs 4-1 in the finals. The celebrations were real, but so was the chaos. NYPD made dozens of arrests, and some fans clashed with police, smashed windshields, and lit fireworks downtown. Now we turn to celebrations tomorrow for the big ticker tape parade. The Knicks will go down the Canyons of Heroes for a franchise first. And Mayor Mamdani has said this is quite possibly the largest parade New York has ever seen, or will ever see. So, Stephen, as the tried and true original New Yorker, how does this make you feel?
This past week in New York has been absolutely electric. And I behoove anyone to say they weren't proud to be a New Yorker. And even everyone who left New York to move to Florida or Texas, or suburb, finally, they're all really proud New Yorkers again. And I just can't think of a better gift for the city. And congratulations to the Knicks on an exciting victory. It was I'm not a basketball fan. I don't watch basketball, but still, I couldn't help but get caught up, in the fever of the city. My dad was a homicide detective in the Bronx for 40 years, and he knew every head of security at Yankee Stadium and Madison Square Garden. So I grew up going to Knicks games because we got free tickets all the time, or Yankee Stadium, or Ringling Brothers Barnum Valley Circus. Like, we always got to sort of like these great seats at all these incredible moments. So it was a really feel-good moment. It really demonstrated the spirit that is really tried and true to New York City only. I think it's very singular. I couldn't be more proud. And I almost wanted them to lose on Saturday so they could come back for days.
Yeah, I know, right?
Tuesday. But anyhow, it's a great feeling. And, this is the kind of momentum that this city thrives on. And this will carry us to the next great thing that happens for us.
Yeah, I just, growing up with all the sports teams in New York, my son, every time the New York Jets are eliminated from postseason, he'll text me and say, thanks, in a sarcastic tone, thanks, Dad, for making me a New York Jets fan. Always, every year, just blaming me. This year, he texted me and said, thanks, Dad, for making me a New York Knicks fan, because he's a rabid fan, and he was just ecstatic, and he was sending me videos from outside on the street. He was just having the time of his life because it was such a good moment. And then the other thing is that what really impressed me about the city was just everybody was outside, like watching the game on flat screen TVs. I mean, it was a real community moment. Now, I think New York has, been gone through a lot, and it really deserved this. And I think it's a seminal event that we're all going to remember.
Well, all I've got to say is, although I'm based in Chicago, I was a kid. I lived in Indiana as a kid, and I was a huge Reggie Miller fan.
Oh no.
So for the I was gonna say, so for the Knicks fans, yeah, there's the big Spike Lee and Reggie Miller incident, and of course,
Yeah.
Reggie Miller wrote a book. The title is called "I Love Being the Enemy,"
Right.
to the Knicks. So, but anyways, congratulations, New Yorkers. That was a big one.
I must admit, it was the first time I had a fear of missing out because I moved to White Plains in January. For the first time, I'm like, oh, I just want to go outside of my apartment and be on 42nd Street and be with the masses. And we did not have that in White Plains, needless to say. But so
I'm surprised, actually.
Yeah.
I know I am too. I mean, I heard a couple people, but it wasn't. It was more like just inside celebrating.
They were probably
So-
all in the
Right.
city.
Right. Exactly. I took the train on Sunday afternoon to see my friend Robert. It was more packed than a commuter train at 8 a.m. on Monday morning. Everybody was, I've never seen them so boisterous and so happy, right? That you should just
It
feel
was amazing.
the energy. And, it's not like we're hosting the biggest event in the world right now. We have the New York Knicks that just won the NBA championships, but now we welcome FIFA World Cup. And so that got underway. I think it was on Thursday of last week. And anybody planning on attending any of the games?
I'm not, but I was in the city yesterday and in Lower Manhattan, I walked across the street and I saw the, Canyon of Heroes descriptor on the street signs. And it just seemed like about one out of every three people was wearing a soccer jersey, especially on the subway. It was really cool to see sort of that international connection that New York still has.
Yeah, I think it really underscores the desire for big brands, whether it's sporting or fashion, to be in New York City and be a part of this great town. And also, like Jonathan said, underscores just the international sort of global diversity that lives here. It really comes out through sports, I think, and it's one of the greatest things about sports is how we kind of like can, whatever socioeconomic class you're from, right? One of the great unifiers in life in the world is sports. So having these moments like FIFA, like the Knicks winning really unites us in ways that we don't get to see every single day. And it's because New York we're so compact here. It's especially evident. So it's just been really exciting.
Yeah, it really has.
So going from New York and then nationally, we just had the jobs reports out last week. And Jonathan, you had wrote about this in your column about New York City as being much more diversified when it comes to the financial markets. And I just find it interesting, we are right after an election year. Everybody was saying New York is dead. No, all the financial companies are going to move away. I mean, it just seems to me now that I've lived this long, oh, wait, this is a reoccurring theme that everybody uses the same old taglines each and every time. And it's like, well, wait, where are the facts? So, Jonathan, you are our facts guy. You are our person that can really tell us and drive down what's actually happening because, certainly we won't get all the facts from the New York Post because you would think that all the financial companies got up and just left. So
Right.
Can you please share with us the financial jobs report?
Well, what's really interesting is that and one of what I wrote about is that I think we're sort of stereotyped as an economy that's like almost wholly dependent on Wall Street and the securities industry. What I think people don't realize is over the last couple of years have been all-time record compensation and profits for the Wall Street sector, which is about 20% of wages and about 4% of the jobs in New York City. So it's a very high earning, that sort of helps drive the luxury market both in New York and the Hamptons. But what's really interesting is that the tech sector is booming and very, not as high compensation as Wall Street, but much higher than the private sector in general. And not only that, but the job creation in the tech sector brings it a little bit makes it a little bit larger than the Wall Street and the securities industry, which is really interesting. So we're not like I like to say, we're not a one-trick pony.
Right.
We're really in the context of higher wage earners, we're really doing something a little bit. I don't know. It's something that's evolved over the last decade, and it seems like it's going to continue, and that's great for the city.
Yeah, I mean, we know that New York has a GDP of about $3 trillion a year, which shadows every single other state and a lot of other countries also. And that's held up and supported by a number of industries, healthcare, media, real estate, obviously financial services also. So this is an economy that is of a scale that is unmatched and unrivaled, and would be very hard to catch up to, despite what other people might be saying to try and lure buyers or sellers, to their own certain markets. And by the way, what's happening in other states is great, and there's a lot of great things about some of these other markets where New Yorkers are migrating to. But to argue that New York is dead or over or never going to recover it's actually not just silly, but it makes you sound really dumb to say something.
Yeah, it's irresponsible to say the least.
To say the least. Yeah.
Just to sort of dovetail into what Steven's saying, the SpaceX IPO yesterday the other day made Elon Musk, the first trillionaire on the globe, and I heard Scott Galloway on a podcast say that he could literally purchase the island of Manhattan and all the individual real estate. Just a single person to do that. Not that he would, but it shows you the scale or the amount of value that the island of Manhattan alone has.
Yeah, we've actually we're working on a story that we're pitching out about this new tech sector in Manhattan. We're calling it Silicon Yards. It's the sort of far west side of Manhattan,
right,
from Hudson Yards on down to Hudson Square. Where you've
That's a great name. Yeah,
it really is.
Yards.
I probably should have said that here, but but the data for real estate supports like the price per square foot in this sort of area has grown significantly. In fact, Jonathan, I called you twice just to kind of get your take on this, but I had to hang up twice.
I thought I was being butt dialed. So,
I was calling you, and then someone called me. But the reality is, it's driving real estate prices in that area. So there's a lot of new condominiums, a lot of new building happening down there. A lot of people want to live there now. So 80 Clarkson, all the way up to Hudson Yards. I mean, it's incredible what's happening. And a lot of that is being supported by this emerging tech sector in New York City. Google,
absolutely,
Square, Facebook, Amazon, et cetera.
And it's being led by AI, correct? It's as far as what I read in the Real Deal last week, they're finding it in San Francisco is the #1 market, but New York is a close second. And you're having a lot of venture capitalists. These new AI firms that are startups are flush with cash, and so they're able to get some of the most premier commercial space, and they're doing it quickly. And sometimes it's almost like Christmas. You're able to get everything you wish for in the space. So I'm curious to know, had you heard any of your agents talk about this now, or that's driving demand?
Yeah, in fact, we have two agents here at Elliman, Ben Dixon and Justin, and his new teammate named Justin. Sorry, I forget his last name, but they're selling a condo that they completely refurbished. They put about $400,000 into it. It's on West 22nd Street to a tech couple. She's an engineer at Instagram. He's an engineer at Google. And they're having a family, so they need a bigger apartment, but they're staying in the area. But we're marketing that apartment to all the tech the tech staffers who are working in that area, who want to be close by, not necessarily like in a cookie cutter type apartment, because they tend to be a little bit more sophisticated in what they're kind of looking for in terms of finishes, et cetera. But that part of Manhattan has a lot of inventory for. I mean, the inventory is low, but there's a lot of to offer that that demographic in terms of what they're
Yeah.
looking for living.
First of all, I love Silicon Yards because it was Silicon Alley
Yes,
is what
Right.
I'm,
Right.
and I think Yards is much better.
Yeah.
It's a bigger, a larger scale.
Absolutely, yeah.
And there's more space over there too than just an alley.
100%.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. I mean, that was Silicon Alley is focused around Flatiron and Madison
Flatiron,
Square
right.
Garden.
Yeah.
So, but this, I mean, when I walked to Chelsea Piers, on the west side of Manhattan, you notice the giant signage for Google, for Facebook, for Square. It's absolutely incredible.
I just want to throw this out there. Do you think that this is just another one of those stories of what's trending, or do you think it will have lasting effects? Because we all heard this during the .com eras, right? It was all about they're the biggest takers of the new commercial space, and they're building everything out for their employees, and just incredible spaces, things that the market had never seen before, with commissaries and basketball courts. Do you think this is just a trend, or is this something that will last for a longer time? Jonathan?
I think it's structural. I think it's a structural change. And that's one thing about New York. Although I'm not a native New Yorker, I've been here like 2/3 of my life. And I every time there's a weird or unusual event like COVID, 9/11, we have these different sort of where the city is put to its test, and it ends up like sort of not reinventing, but going down a path that it hasn't gone before. And I think the tech play right now is a real one. And one of the things that leading up to like the new mayoral administration, there was a lot of external criticism about the city, about the wealthy fleeing and concern about it, and it was all disproven in the metrics. The rents are elevated, prices are rising, sales are rising, inventory is falling. You put all those metrics together and you ask yourself, well, why? And one of the main reasons that's driving the sort of this next generation or next iteration of New York City is the talent is here. I mean, that's it's one thing to say, hey, you can work remotely from anywhere in the world, and you work in the tech sector, but the talent is here, and the reason the talent is here is because there's stuff to do. I mean, it is a cultural mecca for all kinds of things, and I think that's the basic. What do they say? Build it and they will come, or whatever. Right. And that seems to be New York City, and why I love it.
Yeah, I was these aren't pop-ups, right? These are
Yeah.
When Jonathan talks about structural, I mean, these are major real estate acquisitions or long-term leases that signal a commitment to the city by these big companies. And again, like, yes, culturally, New York offers incredible amounts to do for everybody, from food to movies to theater to museums and arts. But the talent and the universities that really feed the talent pool, the workforce here, is probably only matched by Northern California. And you're seeing a big return, by the way, of tech professionals to the Bay Area, to Silicon Valley, because of the talent that's there. These companies are making a big return.
There's always trends of people going away, but they always come back to the big markets. I left in 2019, and I came back to New York because I wanted to be in this metro area. I found it interesting. I didn't realize all the building that was happening in New Jersey. I believe they just opened another soundstage, and there's several. Netflix just opened, or they're about to open, I believe.
I just want to jump in too real quick and say, I've also noticed that we're really at the tail end of the return to office moment too. I don't know if that's been as big of a thing in New York, but I feel like all my neighbors in Chicago, everyone's back in the office now. Maybe a year or two ago it was just a couple days, and now it seems like we're really fully back downtown.
Even on Fridays for us.
Even on Fridays. There you go.
Yeah,
I think it's that the RTO return to office is predicated on the industry.
Hmm.
So or specific companies. The office occupancy nationwide is still only about 60%, but some markets are higher than others. And like, for example, in New York, which is a big Wall Street firm, that's a 4 to 5 day a week
Hmm.
requirement. So you have, and then some industries, you don't. You have companies downsizing and taking smaller footprints. So you have, I know that in my, with my company, in my industry, real estate, valuation, and even brokerage. You go to any firm, and there's a lot less people than there would have been 10 years ago in the space. Um, I don't know. I don't know. I think long term, I think the RTO sort of. I agree. I think that there has been, an increase in return to office, but I don't think it's going to be 100% sort of comparable to pre-pandemic. I think it's going to remain something less,
yeah.
just because I think uh, commercial office use is just going to be rethought in a different
Hmm.
way. Um,
Yeah, I agree completely, Jonathan. And the real estate market and these migration trends that we see reflect that fluidity of where people have to be. So while yes, New Yorkers are sort of making Florida their homestead, so that's where they're tax situated, they still have to be in New York for part of the time, whether it's 1 day a week or 2 days a week or a week a month.
right,
So that's driving the real estate market. So a lot of New Yorkers are owning homes in multiple places because they can, right? They don't have to,
right,
they're not married to the office. They might be working out of New York most of the time, but their families are living, perhaps out in the Hamptons or down in Florida or Greenwich, Connecticut. Or they can, and their company footprint also sometimes matches where they live, right? So they're spending
yeah,
time working with their teams in Southern California or in Colorado or in Texas. So, and they're buying homes in those places so that they have a place to put their head at nighttime.
right, right. Interesting.
So transitioning now to the story that's really been at the forefront and front page for weeks now, and that is Zillow, Compass, and the MLSs. The saga continues. I feel like we're a Star Wars movie. But going on, I thought the story somewhat changed last week after I read your article, AJ, in Inman. It was your interview with Hobie Hanna. I thought it was really fantastic that the narrative is starting to change to really get into, I think, what's at the heart. And this is what Briggs was saying last week, is that this isn't about private listing services. This is all about content and who owns the listing. So will you tell us about your story with Hobie?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, that was basically the premise. Hobie, and actually, I will say he's been pretty consistent on this
Mm-hmm.
because I've spoken to him a couple times over the last couple of years, and but yeah, he's looking at this as less. Or let me back up. I think the question I asked him is, hey, do you think us in the trade media or in the industry are maybe getting this whole thing wrong? Like, is this really about something else? Is this about private listings? Is this? And yeah, he basically looks at this as about it's not just like listing control, but it's that data is so important now that we're in this age and in the industry and in the economy where everything is so information driven and data driven, and there's also a little bit of how would you say? I think like he's looking at this from the perspective as well as that agents are the ones who are in the living rooms or at the kitchen tables talking to sellers, and they're the ones who have the relationship. They're the ones
They're
who
the ones doing
have
the
the
work.
listing. They're the ones doing the work. They're the ones who have that listing, and that there is concern from Hobie, from the executive side that, well, now you have these other players who've taken the data and the listings and have monetized them in their own way and then sort of repackage and sell things back to consumers or to agents. And so that's kind
in
of
their defense, though, that's what the consumer has been devouring and has been consuming, right? A buyer or seller has no, buddy holding them back. They can go to the little firms' websites. It's just being able to go to some other portal. I'm not saying it's right, but that's why Zillow has been winning, is because they've created a great product. So where do we go from here? Stephen, what has the temperature been across the country that you're hearing? Is this something that agents really care about, or they're just, worried about doing their work first and then seeing how it all plays out?
Listen, I think at the end of the day, and Douglas Elliman is a bit of an outlier in that our national average sales price is the highest in the country. It's 1.9 million. I think at the luxury level where most of our agents are working, that one-on-one hand-holding kind of high-touch service is really paramount to our clients, our buyers and sellers. So we're not really too worried about that.
I was about to say, if there's any firm that has done well or is doing almost better than they probably would have after the CIH creation and the assumption of anywhere real estate, you guys now are the small guy yet bespoke guy that is able to deliver.
Yeah, I mean, listen, we're ranked 5, I think, in the nation by sales volume with less than 6,000 agents, whereas the companies ranked 1 through 4 have tens of thousands, if not now hundreds of thousands of agents. So that just sort of speaks to how our agents work. But that said, we are sensitive to the fiduciary obligation of our agents to their sellers. And while we do offer a private listings platform and have for a very long time, this is not new, because there are clients who every now and then, because of their notoriety, right, their celebrity, their net worth and their security risks, do not want their addresses or their homes listed publicly. And we've dealt with that for a very, very long time. Our guidance suggests, though, the opposite. We believe that our obligation is to get the highest price possible for our sellers. And we know that the way to do that is to market it far and wide. So we know that buyers, especially at the luxury price points, come from all over the world, okay? And to rely on an agent on a private listing to make the phone calls to the, 10 or 20 agents only that they know in their sphere of influence is a disservice to the seller. It's an absolute disservice to the seller. And days on market can hinder the sale of a property. It can sort of taint it a little bit. So the smart thing is to come out strong, go far and wide to the target audience, the demographic of person who can afford such a home. And that's where you get top dollar for a home. There's no way of knowing, when something transacts privately, you haven't tested the market. You don't know how much more that seller could have gotten if it was handled correctly.
So let me ask you this: is your private listing network actually private? Because we saw before that they were just saying, "Oh, we're not marketing it publicly," but the story was that we're just not marketing it to the portal, but it was still private for anybody that went on that company's website. You could still see it. So,
I'm sorry to jump in. I was just going to say, can I back up a little bit, Eric, too? Because this whole thing really is rooted in the clear cooperation debate from a couple of years ago. So you guys probably remember all of that. And
CPCP.
Yeah, right? and so without getting really deep, super, because there are so many different threads on this thing, and it can get really deep. But really, this kind of goes back to clear cooperation. And I think from a really high level, what we're seeing is that there are a few players who are really dominant in the residential space, who have big PR communications teams, legal teams. And we're seeing what I would sort of view this as a battle of the narratives, right? Because, Stephen just basically said that you want to come out the gate and you want to share this beyond a limited sphere of influence, and that's something that you hear a lot from the brokerage side, right? Or some brokerages, but you also have where this moment where it seems like everyone's sort of signaling that their method is what's best for consumers, whether it's limited, whether it's full exposure, whether it's this or somewhere in between, or pre-marketing or phased marketing strategy. And so we're in this moment where it's kind of like, as an observer, there are so many different things happening, but the thing that's consistent is that everyone is saying that the thing that they are doing is what's best for the consumer at the end of the day.
There's a lot of noise, right?
Yeah, I look at it as, and I've written a lot about the Compass Anywhere merger and private listings, and at least the Compass version of private listings. And the part that I've strongly objected to is when the marketing effort is basically to hide information from 50% of the people involved in the transaction, right?
Right.
Buyers or sellers, right? And so if you take the side of sellers, basically I viewed it, for lack of a better phraseology, is you're like intentionally trying to screw the buyer by hiding bad information from the buyer. And I just feel that's like incredibly
Wrong.
unethical. And I've been very outspoken about that, because initially when the largest firm in the world came out marketing this, they were inferring that hiding information or that private listings will actually generate a higher price, which, Steven's talking about is like, that's the polar opposite, because you need exposure, more eyeballs to get a higher price. And
I believe
the
you
way
wrote it was 17% higher when you're on the MLS as a public listing.
I don't remember the number, but I just remember that that was misinterpreted, and not by me, but I mean the way it was marketed as somehow it was made for a premium. And I actually called the author of the report, who was the chief economist for Bright MLS, and they were irritated that it was being misrepresented by Compass. So I think what you're seeing, and to AJ's point, is you're seeing a lot of confusion, right? A lot of people interpreting it to their benefit or whatever. But the bottom line is that the less exposure a property has, the lower the probability of getting the highest price, which is the fiduciary responsibility of the brokerage to their sellers. What's really interesting right now is this is being, because the feds basically took a pass on it. I know a guy who knows a guy who knows a guy who will let this kind of go through. That this is going to be litigated at the state level, and you're already, Washington, and there's different flavors of that litigation, but or the laws that have been enacted. But right now, it's Washington State, Wisconsin, Connecticut, and I think soon to be New York. I think it's on the governor's desk at the moment, the proposed law, and then and it's also on the verge of being signed in Hawaii and Illinois. So I think it's going to be litigated at the state level. So you ask yourself, why are now we have 6 states that are saying private listings as presented are a problem, because and there's momentum growing against it. Why is that? Well, it's because it's not transparent to typically a consumer's biggest purchase of their life.
Yeah. I agree with AJ. There are a lot of different narratives kind of going around, but I think you have to ask yourself, like, well, what's the end game of the people putting these narratives out there? I know our end game is to help our agents be really successful by achieving the top dollar possible for their clients. that's ours, right? That's our end game. You'd have to ask these other companies what their true end game is as to why they're putting so much time and money and effort behind private listings. I won't speculate, but I think others will.
Well,
I will.
Yeah.
It
I
does
will.
go. It does go
It's
into
to
the
control. It's to control the product,
Right.
which are listings, and for recruiting. Because if you have to go through 10 hoops to find out, the listings in this market, specific addresses and information, then that's a battle that in recruiting that makes an agent's life a lot easier if everything is controlled, or a lot of the good stuff in a market, like for example in New York, Compass and Anywhere, when you blend them together, they have an 80% market share. If
Right.
you add Anywhere, I mean, that's 30% is the legal limit. So, that it becomes problematic, and that's the fairness to the consumer is really all I care about.
Well, the fight.
I predict that there will be lawsuits from consumers over the losses that they're going to inevitably suffer from.
I totally agree with you. And where this came up with me in early of 2025, when I first started writing about this, is I was talking to a real estate analyst, sort of, that covers the housing vertical. And we were talking about private listings. And he told me, we're waiting, all my colleagues are waiting for the litigation to start, because the seller who accepted an offer finds out that two people saw the listing, right? Because they don't.
Your neighbor sells for 10% more.
Right. And exactly. And then a buyer who accepted the offer finds out that that the listing was actually on the market for 180 days. They're not in the market. They didn't know, they didn't talk to the right people. And so that's where you have this potential, future litigation, which I agree with you. I think that's a real liability for them.
I think go ahead, AJ.
Yeah, one thing that could be really helpful, I think, from like the observer's perspective is, if we're seeing this sort of being framed or pitched as seller choice, and I think we've probably all seen that pretty frequently,
Yes.
and it's not just like one or two. I think that's been kind of adopted, I think, by folks who are taking this position, whether it's either for private listings or for data control or whatever it is, if it's a fight against the portals or for
you have
sellers
the
to have the
MLSs,
optionality.
the portals, and the brokerages. And
Right, but one thing that could be helpful is if it's really about seller choice, I think having some numbers, or how many sellers opted into this, or how many homes ended up on the MLS, how long are the pre-marketing, because each MLS now, after this clear cooperation update, NAR changed their rules, and so now pre-marketing is allowed, but now each MLSs or regions have to determine this, and so it's like, yeah, it's just
I have an answer for you.
Yeah, go ahead.
So using the Bright MLS report, 94% of people that went with private listings sold publicly, which I think kind of tells you
everything.
Yeah. So,
right, and I think, but going to the choice, how many are opting in or choosing that marketing or the phased marketing, would be interesting. So
yeah, I agree.
Well, I know we won't be able to solve this today, but I can guarantee you that the conversation will continue over, who owns the content? Is it the portal? Is it the MLS? Is it the brokerage? And as you're seeing many MLSs now going from their small markets, trying to push to become national. With Real Tracks, and I think Nashville now is the headquarters of the story of where everybody is focusing on, and we'll see where that goes. I find it interesting, and it reminded me last week. Content is king. That's what they always say, right? Content will become the currency of tomorrow, and this so aligns with the music industry, because when you're looking at music artists who owns their masters, who owns their book of career music. And right now, the largest owner are hedge funds and venture capitalists, because they know that's where the return, all the referral fees and every time it is run on a network, they'll get paid. So are we far from that?
Well, I think, early on in sort of the blockchain discussion, there was a venture that I'm involved in had started in that direction, and there was sort of this idea that, when a data point gets shared with a company, like you're a selling agent and uh, that put that data into the blockchain on one of your sales. Every time that sale is used as a comp by an appraiser, by a broker doing a BPO, that you get this sort of fraction of a penny or whatever it is. And then through repetition, that's a way to monetize for like individual people on the blockchain. That was what was thought of. With as far as the music industry goes, I'm still grappling with the fact that, like, going in an elevator, Led Zeppelin is now elevator music, and and I find it very confusing or disorienting.
But Eric, your point though about the sort of private equity
Mm-hmm.
ownership or corporate ownership, I mean that is a really interesting discussion. And I think Jonathan, you probably know more of the background on Compass or maybe like the SoftBank original, like the
Oh
investment
yeah.
and some of these other, and so yeah, I mean, I think one thing that's very clear and obvious, Eric, though, is that we are in this consolidation moment, and it's the brokerages that's happening in that space, and now the MLSs seem to be kind of following, and that could take a few more years, but that seems to be
I
happening
mean, the
there too.
MLS industry has been sort of shrinking. It's been, I know a few people that, their job for MLS systems is to merge with the geographic neighbor, right? And there's this constant consolidation of MLS networks or systems, because essentially what an MLS really is a big database with a bunch of rules, and a board, quite often is, just the broker members of that location, right?
Right.
There's not a lot of nuance to it. That's really what it is. And so as we automate and enhance our technological prowess, there's like this, I think there's 500 MLS systems in the US now, and it's just going to keep sort of shrinking over time. I know that uh, Compass, the Compass International MLS, which is concerning in terms of transparency. But
Right.
the alternative, what we have now, is sort of chaotic. So I don't know what
I
the
think we'll
answer
be
is.
hearing a lot more on that news front as the months unfold. So
Yeah, for sure.
let's end the story or our event today with an Inman story. Mauricio Umansky of the agency wrote an op-ed piece earlier, and it's real estate doesn't need more noise. It needs perspective. And I just thought that might be a great way to end today, because there is so much noise in the industry. And he wrote, the most important shift I have seen in this business over the past decade is the move from transactional to advisory. Clients today have access to the same information and data that you do. So, gentlemen, where do you see this, as far you each represent a different facet of the real estate world? Where do you see this going? And is this something that impacts your slice?
I just want to quickly say on the noise thing. I feel like that's something that we've seen for years. People talk about, tune out the noise, don't worry about the noise, and we see that. I feel like noise is subjective, right? Like,
Interesting.
Jonathan's mentioning about like Led Zeppelin in the elevator. Like to some people that'd be noise. Like, I don't want to hear this.
Right.
But yeah,
I kind of like it.
it's interesting. I hate to say it or kind of be coy, because I'm not, but I do think that when you see the arguments about noise, I think you have to kind of wonder what specifically is that focusing on or referring to, if something specific.
Right. And what they don't
Can
want
I-
to talk about.
And don't want to talk about.
Right.
Well, there's always going to be a lot of noise, right? And it's what are you focusing on? And I love that Mauricio is huge on the mindset and being authentic, right? And so I thought it was an interesting piece.
Yeah. I think it's important for real estate agents to focus on their work. And I think agents today who are simply transactional, who are simply transacting in their own markets are kind of losing the big picture, which is a more fluid market, more fluid buyer. And when you develop a relationship with a client, buyer or seller, it can be a very intimate relationship. You're learning a lot about these families, these people, these individuals, and you really stand the chance to earn more income by being more of an advisor, more of a strategist, right? So listening becomes a really important skill set for real estate agents, and this goes for anybody in life. So when you're showing potential buyer or seller, you're working with a seller in New York City, and you hear them mention their love for Aspen or their love for Miami, it would behoove you to say to them, oh, I can help you in those markets, and not just let that sort of go in one ear, not the next. It could also behoove a real estate agent to have friends in the art world, right? To have friends in the private office world, so that when they're listening to their clients talk about their love of art or wanting a home with an art collection in it, you can advise them or sort of steer them to the right person who can help them accomplish their goals in life. So it's not just real estate; it's any asset class that upper high net worths are interested in. A good real estate agent in the right market can really stand to become indispensable to that person, and not just buying or selling real estate in that market. I mean, we have agents that will fly to Paris or Dubai or Shanghai to help their clients transact there too, because they're trusted, and trust and credibility is those are the two most
Paramount
important brand foundations for an agent. And when they trust you enough with New York, they might trust you with other parts of their life also.
So this is a great segue to our final part. The last two shows that I've done, we've ended with the future of real estate is. I'll change it up just a little bit and say real estate is, Stephen?
It is a people business driven by great technology.
Jonathan, real estate is?
It's an asset surrounded by relationships.
I like that. And AJ, real estate is?
Boy, that's a good one.
It's just a loaded question.
It's everything. It's where you live. It's your community. It's an industry. It's very ambitious, smart people who are competing with each other. It's all kinds of things.
I would actually change my answer to it's the greatest theater in the world.
I love it.
And a one word description would be noise.
Yeah. I do want to say, actually, and I'm glad you said that, Jonathan, because I do want to just clarify real quick, Eric, too, that noise can mean so many things, like whether is it discussions happening in the industry? Is it social media? I mean, there's just more media now. There's more stuff out there than ever. And, it's really interesting. When the IMRED situation was going on in Chicago with Zillow, and I reached out and talked to a few agents, and this might not surprise Stephen, but
gentlemen, I think we've actually cut off, and so
Oh, all right.
Well, it's great talking to you guys.
It's great.
Thank you for joining us, Eric.
He had to go.
Yeah, I guess that's our cue. But John, AJ, you should finish.
Yeah, I'll just finish the point. But it's interesting when you talk to agents, and Stephen, you may have experienced this, but when there's high level industry beefing happening, the
Yes.
agents aren't as plugged into that. They're worried about their clients or the
Such a good
inspection or this or that, and so maybe sometimes when people say avoid the noise, maybe it's just, hey, stay in your lane, keep focused on your clients. Not
right.
whatever.
But don't lose the reason for being, right?
Right.
Focus on what you're there for sure.
All right. Good to see you guys. Thank you.
Great to see you.
Jonathan, good to see you guys.
Likewise. Fun stuff. Take care.